Hey, this is Jeff McNeil, joined by Doug Davison, and we are back. It's been a few weeks since we've been on here and done this, and Doug actually had somebody say they missed us, so maybe that's a good thing.
I guess.
So to our one fan, hey, we're back. It's been a very interesting week the past 7 to 8 days as we had a school shooting threat here on the Houston R1 School District campus, and that has dominated the headlines. You'll see in this week's front page, it's all about this situation.
Dominated the talk of the town, too.
It has, and Doug, as we've talked about many times before, as a crime or anything, murders, anything else, the things that used to be national news, unfortunately, are right here in our backyard, and these are going to be things that we're going to be dealing with moving forward.
That's a true story. I mean, we've crossed that line, if you want to call it that, and the way things are now are the way they are. It's just not going to get better, which is actually a biblical concept.
And we'll talk a little about that a little more later on, Doug, as you wrote a column about that recently. But first, let's just let me recap exactly what happened and hopefully help people understand what developed. Last Tuesday afternoon, about 2:30, a student found a bullet inside a high school hallway. And so that bullet was turned into the principals, who then contacted law enforcement, and they investigated the bullet. About an hour later, a student then comes forward to the high school principal and says, hey, I've heard a classmate saying these alarming things. Now, administration and police do not believe that the bullet and what the student heard are connected in any way, but what they do believe is that the bullet being discovered may have concerned the student enough to think, wow, I need to report what I've heard. And so once that happened, they began to investigate, and through their investigation, they determined that a 16-year-old male student at Houston High School had made some threats to carry out a potential plan of a shooting during a national walkout day that is being planned next month. And so that was identified. The student was turned over to juvenile authorities, and that got us to where we are today. And, it was a kind of a surreal environment at the school district last Wednesday when you had 8 law enforcement officers on campus and at doors and everywhere. And as I said, Doug, here we are. It's here in Houston, and these things have to be taken seriously. Joke or no joke, kidding or not kidding, it's a serious situation, and it was handled that way, and it has to be handled that way.
Right. This day and age, there's just no room for, like you said, joking or practical joking. It's a subject that needs to be, as you said, taken very seriously, and was, and I'm sure our police did a great job of investigating it. I would expect nothing less from them.
Right. And it's a thing too that now school officials are saying, and they're trying to communicate to parents and students, when you hear something, speak up. I guess what's happened since then is that now more students are coming forward and say, yeah, I've seen some things, or I've heard some things, or some things have been texted to me. And what they're finding out is maybe this has been going on for a little bit and no one has said anything.
Right.
And so it's so important, and then this even relates to everyday life, whether you're walking down the sidewalk or at Walmart, when you see something suspicious, you've got to report it.
Right.
And then the law enforcement can decide what to do from there.
Right. Isn't it interesting how what happened here kind of follows what you see happen nationwide? One person says something and then all of a sudden it's like the dam broke, and you get a whole bunch of other people, I won't say getting on the the wagon train or whatever, but just substantiating what the first person said.
More information comes forward.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that, as we said, this unfortunately is really gives a clue into the times that we live in. When I grew up in Houston as a young boy, you didn't lock your doors. You could walk downtown as a 5, 6, 7-year-old without any concerns. And that was a great time and a great era. And while I enjoyed that time, that is not the day and age that we live in today. And Doug, you wrote about this in a column a couple weeks ago that we haven't had an opportunity to discuss here live on video. But times are different. And even though we're in Houston, Missouri, tucked away in rural America, we have some of the same challenges that everyone else in the country faces. And you wrote about that. So why don't you kind of share your opinion?
Well, my opinion often in these circumstances follows sort of a biblical line of thinking. And that biblical line of thinking is that things just aren't going to get better. There's not going to be a big revival and a big love fest. It's just going to keep going the way it's going, only a little worse every day. And you know, you see that, as you said, because these things are happening in our own community. In fact, as you know, the Houston threat was the third one in less than a month within our county. 3 different school districts have experienced this kind of thing. And, you know, whatever the reasons might be for it, don't really matter. It's just, as you said, something that needs to be taken seriously. And although we can't change the direction society's heading, we can react, which is also biblical, and take precautions and just do whatever it is we can do.
Right.
Which might be, as you often say, limiting the number of entrances, unlocked entrances to public buildings and such.
Yeah, I think that there were some interesting things that the law enforcement officials saw when they were on campus, on Wednesday, when they were just helping provide security and basically being there to calm everyone's nerves. And one thing they noticed is that students are coming in and out of multiple points in buildings on campus, and that just opens up doorways for people who shouldn't be in there to get in, opportunities for someone who shouldn't have access to the building. And, you know, they were commenting there's got to be one way in and one way out only. Do you limit students' ability to carry backpacks and things around campus with the opportunity to maybe hide something? You know, you've got to carry books around, but at the same time, it's also opportunities to potentially do something dangerous. So these are all things that the school district, that authorities have got to consider and talk about. And I know the school board will probably be discussing this at Tuesday's meeting. But, you know, I think to put it not jokingly, but to really be serious, we dodged a bullet in this situation.
Yeah.
It turned out they discovered the kid who did it. It's been handled. Right. And so we dodged what could have been just a horrible tragedy. And so now that we've dodged this, I think everyone's now been alerted to say, okay, where are we missing the mark? Where are we falling short? And what can we do? Right. Entranceways. Yes, it's hard to only have one way in and out of the building. That's a must. That's got to happen. I heard someone mention the fact that maybe metal detectors just at the front entrance would be something that could be used. And again, Houston, Missouri, do we have to have that? I would like to say no, but unfortunately that's right. Where we're at. And you know, as a parent, I want to know my kids are safe. Yeah. I want to know that someone's not bringing in weapons. And so if it requires that a kid go through the metal detector in the morning, while inconvenient, maybe that's something that we need for safety, and something that I'm a big proponent of, and I hope the conversation starts, is a school resource officer. And Doug, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I think it's necessary. I think it's time that our school district has this, and I'm hopeful that this conversation that started a few years back and we were unable to make happen, I think the finances ultimately were the reason that we couldn't get one. I think it needs to happen, and I'd like to know what your opinion is.
Well, I think if the school district and either the police department or sheriff's department can work something out that is financially feasible in all directions, then it would be nothing but a good thing. Whether it's from a deterrent angle or just quick response because there's somebody already there. Right. You know, there's no downside to it if it can be worked out.
And I know there are a lot of communities that partner, as you said, the city pays maybe 25%. Yeah. And the city actually discussed this at the council meeting on Monday. They didn't make a decision, but they're starting these conversations. So now while it's fresh and while we've had this happen in our backyard, I think these conversations need to, and I'm confident will take place. My thoughts, about a school resource officer, number one, you do have the quick response. If anything happens, they're right there on the grounds. Many times the Houston police are responding to the school district, having to deal with situations. We've got the officer right there. Right. More likely than not, we're not going to have a school shooting on campus, and so they're not going to have to respond to that. But what you hear in other communities is that these school resource officers develop relationships with kids, and they start to hear stories about, hey, my mommy is being abused by my dad, or hey, someone's done this to me and my family, or hey, I've heard someone talking about this. And it's those conversations based on relationships that many times thwart things before they ever happen. That's right. And I think it's that deterrent, that getting out in front, that eliminates many of these potential problems that we have. And so
there's so many layers to what the presence of such an officer would allow. I mean, it's hard to even predict how it might affect everything. But
Sure.
like I said, it would be nothing but good, I'm sure.
Right. And we heard from Chief Tim Saplina that last Wednesday, when the officers were on campus, students were actually coming up to them and sharing information with them. And those guys were there for the first time. So imagine a woman or a man that's there every single day of the school year, the relationships and bonds that would form. That officer would be able to go to all extracurricular events, be at ball games. Something about the presence of an officer just kind of keeps people calm and deters a potential crime. And then there's also the added benefit for our community too, where this person could be a reserve officer, could work maybe some summers, come in for special events. I think there's an all-around benefit, and I know it's a financial hurdle, but I'd like to hopefully see this conversation take place, and maybe we can make it happen, because I think
worth
here we
working
are.
out. It's worth taking a look at it, that's for sure.
Okay, well, that's the big news of the week. There are some other things in the newspaper. Doug, you went to the chamber banquet on Saturday night. Looks like everybody had a lot of fun. Lots of cool pictures, everybody all dressed up, and looks like they had a good time.
Yeah, disco gets a lot of bad rap here and there, and you just hear people talk about it in a negative way a lot of times, but I even wrote a column about it. I think disco's cool.
There were some cool cats out there on Saturday, weren't there?
There were people that were dressed for the occasion and had a good time, and some good music was played by the DJs, and it was disco night in Houston.
There you go. Something cool that's on the sports page this week. 5 members of the basketball team, guys and girls, were named All SCA this week, so congratulations to them. And also I wrote a story about Caitlin Root, who scored 1,000 career points, a great achievement for her. She's actually the third girls basketball player, I should say, that's met this earmark for their career in the past 4 years. So that's kind of cool. We've had a little run of 1,000.
It's really not that common.
Yeah, it's not.
They're making it seem common.
We've made it common to score 1,000 points. So anyway, you can read about those things in the paper. Thanks for watching today. Would love to hear your opinions on your thoughts on school safety, school resource officers. Would you even be in favor of maybe a metal detector at a door at the high school? So share your opinion below, and we'd love to get the feedback, and we'll join you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.